what is going to happen today. So Aşiyan, thank you very much for coming into it, for doing part 2, because Turkey's experience is really important. What you've done, everyone talks about the success stories in Turkey. So you want to just take it from there. How do you want to go? Please, totally your
I mean,
wish.
is it possible for me to share a screen, because I have a presentation? Maybe it is easier for participants to understand.
After 10 seconds, after just put this up, that this is what we are doing, mediation legislation. This is part 2 with Aşiyan. How, what, when, where, which, who, why of it. Won't get more into anything. Please, you can share.
Okay. Let me share screen. Is it seen right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first presentation, I mentioned that there is one law, it's called the Law on Mediation in Civil Disputes. So this is the main source of the legislation in Turkey. It outlines general principles, defines procedural aspects, and also regulates all types of activities, including training, licensing, monitoring these activities. But also this act is also supplementary. It has also regulation quite detailed, but also ethics and code of conducts for mediators, and we have mediation tariff. And there was also references about mediation in Turkey with the other laws, but the main act is the law for civil disputes, and it is almost 10 years in process and right now. And the main responsible body in Turkey is a head of mediation department. It is under the Ministry of Justice. And also under this department, there is a mediation council. This council has different members from bar associations, and also some mediators involved this council. And so this is the structure: Ministry of Justice under the Director of General for Legal Affairs, head of the mediation department and mediation board. And in the courthouses, we have mediation offices, but in Turkey, we don't have court-annex mediation system. Although courts has mediation offices, they are only responsible for registration of mediations and application through the mediation done by the mediation offices, but also they appoint mediators from the list of Ministry of Justice, but they are not like working mediation centers. So the only registration work done through the mediation offices. So concerning the voluntary mediation, it took until 2018, the whole process. And we started the mandatory mediation session with labor disputes. Then the following year, it is also applied for the commercial disputes. And in 2020, we have consumer disputes become mandatory. What I mean by mandatory, I explained in the first session. And we have only the first mediation session, first 2 hours is a mandatory. So several cases like listed in labor disputes, commercial disputes, consumer disputes, in order to apply court, first you need to go through the mediation process. After that, you can apply for the court. So it's actually prerequisite to applying the court processes. And if the mediation fails, then the legal proceeding continues. But if the mediation concluded with an agreement, this agreement is like a court order. So the parties cannot apply and for later on for the same dispute. So concerning the number of mediators, this is not updated number. It's 16,841. But we have nearly 45,000 mediators applied the new exam. So they will be registered. So we are talking nearly 60,000 mediators which is quite high number. And also we have mediation service service providers, the private mediation centers. These are, and some of them are big size, like they have at least 85 to 100 mediators. Some of them like a boutique size, 5 to 10 mediators practicing over there. It is not obligatory in Turkey that whether you can privately work as a mediator, but also you can work through the mediation center. There is no law or legislation concerning the mediation services. But the new coming legislation will also have some restrictions and also regulation to how to provide mediation services as well. So these are the numbers this is from the last year numbers, and I don't know why, but Ministry of Justice last 1 year, they didn't publish any statistics. So the most recent statistics that we have from last year in May, they published the last ones. And according to this, total mediations settled through mandatory and voluntary based in total is 3 million. Right now we have 3 million cases, as an example, settled through mediation. And when we look the voluntary based mediation, it is also quite high and close to the 1 million. And the success rate is 99%. And in the first session, I tried to explain that is mainly for when the company is ending the labor contracts, they want to do it through mediation agreement. One, they would like to negotiate with the workers, and the other thing, they don't want to workers to apply court again, since mediation agreement is the final verdict. So companies prefer, sometimes workers prefer to end the relationship through mediation agreement. So it can apply as if there's a real negotiation going on, and if there is no influence on the worker to sign the agreement. But in the application, I said there are some problems in Turkey about the quality of mediation. Sometimes real negotiation not conducting by the mediators, or mediators sometimes acting like a company representative. And instead of being independent, they work mainly for the company's benefit. And so this creates a question mark whether the quality of the mediations are really taking in place. However, when we look also mandatory mediation system and the labor disputes, we see also, again, the success rate is more than 58%. So it is also a good number, maybe not 99%, but still close to it. And consumer and commercial disputes are similar. It's explained mainly is the difference between the success rates is commercial disputes is much more complicated, and also the power imbalances in labor disputes is much more seen, but commercial parties are equal to each other. So in that sense, the success rate is lower than, and also skills of mediators is for commercial mediation and for consumer disputes, there's much more skills needed than labor disputes. So in order to become a mediator in Turkey, you need to, first of all, to have a Turkish nationality and degree in law. This is different than many other countries, although majority of mediators are mostly from legal professionals, but in Turkey, there's also a restriction. Any other profession cannot apply as a mediator. They need to have a degree in law and also minimum 5 years of experience. And After that, you need to also complete a certification program and get the exam. And I need to remind in here that in Turkey, we don't have a bar exam. And you can be a lawyer without exam, but you cannot be a mediator without an exam. So this is also getting a lot of critique, especially from lawyers. Also, some experienced lawyers, academicians are saying that we need to get a mediation certificate without getting an exam. So there's a new law in preparation. So according to the draft law, and maybe it is going to pass like that. If you have a 20 years of professional experience, you don't need to pass the law exam, mediator exam. So currently we have 84 hours of training. And this is not, I'm not going to go through the law details about, as I explained, for labor disputes, commercial disputes, and consumer disputes, it is compulsory to attend mediation before filing a litigation. And this is quite similar to Italian model, but the main difference that we have is from the Italy model, government is paying first 2 hours if the mediation fails. If there is an agreement, then the parties are responsible to pay. In order to encourage to attend the first session, government also made one more change. If one of the parties fails to attend mediation session without any excuse, then even if they win at the end of the court expenses on their side. So for mediation session, parties should attend. If they will not provide any excuse and they did not attend, then they will cover the court expenses. So there's a kind of a penalty for not attending the first mediation session. So it was quite helpful for us as mediators to convincing the parties, because with attending the mediation session, they have nothing to lose. But if they don't attend, they have a lot to lose. In that sense, it was a good encouragement for both party sides and also for mediators. And we will promote mediation through like that. And there's other difference is in Turkey also create a lot of discussion, the mediator's tariff. And our mediator's tariff, like to lawyer's tariff in Turkey, is we get percentage from the settlement amount. So if there's an agreement, and in the agreement, if there's a certain amount agreed by the parties, mediator fee identify according to that number. Of course, this creates a question mark about the neutrality of mediator. And also, this is quite different than hourly and daily rates that most of the mediators apply. But at the same time, it is also creating uncertainty. And beginning of the process, the parties doesn't know about mediator's fee and mediation costs either. So when the numbers are getting higher, and so the party is not, this is also not encourage them to use mediation because they don't know about the cost. They don't want to pay a high amount of cost. Also, it's limited alternatives. And when it's come to a mediator side, I can give a short example that also not beneficial for the mediators either. And we settled through one consumer case, and both lawyers were attend that session of me. And actually, they settled for the 5 different cases. And we also negotiate that the parties involve different cases, but none of them include any number. So although they settled quite, made a good agreement between 5 different disputes, at the end of process, I hourly, quite small amount of number, because the tariff says if there is no amount, so it needs to be identified according to hourly rate. Hourly rates of court is quite small. So in that sense, the parties and also lawyers were so happy, and I'm not. I'm happy that the parties agree, but so this is also creating a kind of a discouragement for the mediator side as well, because there's another tariff change about the consumer disputes, and which is identify the set number for the mediator side. For sometimes the parties attending the consumer mediation session are quite wealthy actually. It's not, but the law protecting the consumer, not mediator. So in that sense, this is kind of this still ongoing discussion. And I also mentioned that when the mediation mediation process, if it is settled through an agreement, this is enforceable with the courts. And commercial disputes is not all type of commercial dispute is a part of mandatory mediation system, but there was, when the law first introduced, there was kind of a discussion about which commercial dispute is a part of mandatory system and which is not. Now there is much more clarification on that side, and this is also mandatory mediation for the consumer disputes. So I said for the becoming a mediator, you need to get a certification, but this is not the end of process. And also you need to pass the exam. So we need to get a specialized training after in order to register into system. And for instance, in order to get the mandatory mediation cases, that right now it is only 3 areas. So we need to complete the specialized trainings, and after that we can register in the court system and appoint as a mediator. But for voluntary cases, there is no requirement. So the parties can select even if you don't have special certification about that area. Also, government identify, other than this main 3 area, 7 different areas for to get a specialization, and this is the sport law, health law, construction, banking and finance, intellectual property, insurance and energy. These are also 7 certification programs going on. So as a mediator, I can select all 3, but for the specialized area, I can only select 3 areas and say that I have an expertise in these areas. But as I said, for the voluntary based, there is no limitation. And I also mentioned a little bit challenges in the first session. So I'm summarizing these also in this session. And in Turkey, we made a good promotion, nearly 3 million cases, as also changed the perception of lawyers as well. And also the parties has a now awareness about what is mediation and the process, at least a basic knowledge. But high number of mediators and also giving difficulties for government, also for parties to have a high quality control. So when the voluntary-based mediation in the system, there was a high settlement rates, but the number of mediators were also low. So there was a frequent control of the mediators and interaction between the mediators. But now the number of mediations are getting high, also the number of complaints getting higher as well. So monitoring of mediators and in the current system, and there is no feedback taken from the parties. So after the mediation session concluded, there is no feedback mechanisms that parties, if they have a complaint about me, if they have a complaint about mediation process, they need to go through the Ministry of Justice. not for case by case. So expertise is a question mark again, although there is a specialized training sessions, and to specialization is a kind of a question area as well. If I know the commercial law very well, whether I can be a good commercial mediator. So our system is say yes. So mainly our specialization trainings is based on the law. So it is high amount of materials is giving to lawyers about commercial law, new changes, and but for practical level, there's only limited examples, and for for that reason, there's still question mark about whether this gives a specialization or not. For instance, I'm doing in voluntary-based inheritance cases mostly, but this is not the area that I selected personally. The parties actually decide on me that I'm good in family mediation and also inheritance cases. So most of the time, is the parties one selected you, so whether it's not really dependent on your background, because I never practiced in intellectual property or inheritance law. I was a commercial lawyer, but the parties decided I'm good at that, so I continue on that cases because of the reputation. So this is kind of a different example, but our current legal system and applies that I need to have also in order to update my knowledge for regarding the regulation as well. And also the parties are realize that now it is a good cost-effective method, so companies are using as an prevention for the mediation. So it is also an opportunity as companies learn about the mediation processes, they apply more and more into the new areas as well. It is also for the government side and the party side giving, since it is less cost and for application of mediation without any cost. So it was filtering the cases, and it seemed that after the mediation session, even there's no settlement, most of time parties not applying. Either they are saying not a point, or maybe they are applying, they are calculating the cost of going court is going to be more, so no needed. So these are, we had also some, I don't know what is the time right now.
There is actually 2 minutes, but we're just
Okay.
waiting. It looks like a part 3 is also coming up, Aşiyan.
No, I think so. It is enough for just, I also mentioned in the first presentation, it's about that we have lessons learned from mandatory mediation. Mostly is about, it was a good publicity, and although it seems like it was forcing the parties to go and apply mediation, but we need to know that adults learn by an action. So when they practice about mediation, their knowledge and curiosity increased. There was a strong resistance from lawyer side. Now, at least either they would like to become a mediator or want to learn about the process more. So it is also a good example in that sense, and worth to try, I believe. But it needs to be structured well and identify the risks, and like our system moved too fast, and controlling it also becoming much more difficult after this stage.
But Aşiyan, tell me this, when you said that all this examination and everything, this is only for the ones which are done where before going to court, those kind of matters, or the ones that go to the mediation centers and they have these independent mediators there for them also?
for all type of disputes, in order to call myself as a mediator, I need to be registered under the Ministry of Justice. For instance, I'm also part of Women Mediators Network, Mediterranean. There are some political backgrounds, academicians over there. They are calling themselves as a mediator, and they cannot involve any civil disputes case. So in order to involve any type of civil case and official mediation agreement, you need to register under the Ministry of Justice.
But I think the interesting part that you're saying is that they're looking at the subject knowledge and they're looking at that aspect for the examination and that expertise, but not the process expertise so much. It's
in very first times, when the numbers was low, there was an interview. So in that sense, they were also making practical exercise. The committee, the mediation council, were also interviewing with the mediators and identifying their skills as well. But after the numbers get increased more, they cut through the interviewing process, only made exam.
But I think that when you said that there are, I mean, when we looked at the figures there, you were looking at some 3 million cases.
Yes.
And this went to those 16,000 mediators that were registered.
No, yes, 16,000.
Yeah. So basically, you're saying that as an average, it's going to be 187 mediations per mediator. Right?
It depends on also, I mean, for Istanbul, the number of mediators were high, also the number of cases high. But for instance, I can give from one city an example. Is in Kars, where at the beginning there was only one mediator registered. So most of the cases were going to, depends on the city, the balance of mediation cases is also changing, but the system appoints roughly, so there's no based on an expertise or.
Well, I'm just thinking with that many, if so many numbers are going to each mediator, how is the process being conducted? Are they giving enough time for the process, or is it more pushing into settlement, that kind of an approach? How is that working?
It depends on the mediator also. I mean, since the process is confidential, we have no knowledge whether really it is conducted. If there is no complaint comes from the parties, how the mediator conduct the process is question mark in that sense. Of course, it's raising a question mark, as you said, if a mediator take 1,000 cases in a 1 year, within time level, I cannot imagine how to divide it. But we see that if in the process that I explained, when they are ending the contract relationship, most of time the parties already agree. So as a mediator's role, they certified the process more than negotiating.
So what I understand is with Aşiyan and with Catherine, there is lots to discuss. We need part 2s and part 3s have to happen. But Andrea's here finally, not looking at my messages for the Zoom link. That is the biggest problem. Imagine, Aşiyan, okay, the message is lying there with the Zoom link in her WhatsApp, but did not have a look at it. Imagine what my situation. No one reads my posts. No one reads my WhatsApp messages.
Okay.
Okay, so Aşiyan, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And lots of questions, lots of things have to be discussed. The mediation council has to be discussed, whether that is working or not, but we'll do that maybe we can do a part 3 sometime. So lots to discuss. So thank you very much. And
nice
of course,
to meet you, Catherine. And